there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learned an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hello and welcome to Being Human, Hidden Depths, the podcast by Collaboration Global. If you don't know, my name is Jill Tiny, and I'm delighted to welcome one of our members from Collaboration Global, Anne Scottlin. Welcome, Anne.
Hi, Jill. I'm so happy to be here.
It's really interesting when we have somebody from across the pond, and you said good morning when you came on, and I said good afternoon. I still get my head around. Like, it was just time is just this concept of numbers, and we watch the clock, but actually it means nothing, because now we have this technology. We can connect up wherever we are in the world, and it's amazing. So I love to hear your perspective on the UK and Europe, and also the way you live and the way you were brought up. And we think we're the same because we speak the same language, but there is such a lot of differences. So I'm really excited to be having this conversation today. Before we start, can you let people know how you came to Collaboration Global, and what is it that made you go, I think I want to be part of this?
Yes. So I was invited by one of your lovely members, it's a radio show. And I was her guest, and she said, wow, you should really meet Jill. And I said, oh, okay, like that would be amazing. Can you get me an appointment? So she did. And I said, wow, this is exactly what I've been looking for, because I'm a social entrepreneur. I founded a group called the Global Impact League. So Collaboration Global was exactly what I was looking for, which was a global-minded networking organization with a real heart for humanity and the world, not just, oh, we're networking and exchanging cards and it's just to make $1, a euro, a pound. but but not like, we all want our businesses to succeed, but working with, wouldn't you rather align yourself with people who have similar goals and similar convictions about how we go about the business we do, rather than just people who are completely in it for themselves. So that was perfect.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. And it's so true, isn't it? I think more and more, this is my perception, since the pandemic, where we were forced to be on our own, and we're like, this isn't very nice. And then you're let free out again. It's like, one, I don't like being lonely. And two, actually, all of a sudden, when you were faced with this scary prospect of family dying, friends dying, yourself being ill, not coping, all of a sudden you really want to connect with good people who have a heart and aren't just in it for so how much money can I make out of this then?
I know.
All of a sudden, the stuff in the world, the stuff that we have, the way we sate our desires, new car, let's go on this fancy holiday, let's get a bigger house, doesn't seem so important. And I think more and more businesses are now kind of looking around going, do you know what? It's not just about making the money. It's about something bigger than that. And that's one of the reasons why I love it when people come to Collaboration Global, because they want to be bigger than they are on their own, and they can share their passion to spread it out to more and more people. Because if you're all helping each other, it's a nice kind of place to hang out and see what you could actually create if you come together. I mean, there's an African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Perfect. Yes. No, that's so true. And reaching out to people within this network and other networks, we're still, for many years I was working in emotional wellness industry as well. And, through COVID, which is when I published my book, Live for Joy, finding those things that bring you joy, that bring you happiness, that bring you connection. One of my chapters is called Be a Benevolent World Citizen. That's literally the title of the chapter. It's a long chapter. I was just going to call it World Citizen, but I'm like, no, what kind of world citizen? You know, be a benevolent world citizen. Our Surgeon General here in the US, I think it was just this week, came out with a report of what he calls an epidemic of loneliness
Yeah.
following COVID. And so many people now are working in a non-social environment, and sometimes their only connection is online, or not even face to face, not even Zooming or whatever like we do now. Um, so even though we've gone through the worst of it, we still need to reach out because our entire social landscape has changed, and we need to find, not all of us live in an adorable village like you, Jill, which I totally wish. Because as you asked me, what do you think about England? What do you think about Europe? I'm like, I am a hopeless Anglophile. All
Oh.
I care is that I was born on the wrong side of the pond. And I mean, I'm a BBC junkie. It's really hopeless. All my friends laugh at me. I don't care. I think it's
Oh.
absolutely wonderful. And to be fair, I am English, Irish, and Scottish with a touch
Oh.
of something from the continent, but mostly, well, very white. It's like I say, my husband finally did a 23andMe on me, and
Oh.
he's from all over the world. He could pass for many different ethnicities, and he's just one
Yeah.
of those, multicultural looking people. And me, he's like, oh my word, he's like, there's a line on the map from northern France north. That's it. That's all you are. I'm like, oh my
Wow. It's
word.
fascinating, isn't it, when you
It
do that?
is.
It's
It
it's
is.
beautiful. Yeah, I really
It
like that.
is.
And somebody, I think it was Matali in our group, was saying how once somebody said to her about looking back sort of 5,000 years and in Nepal and the Himalayas and how there's the Chinese look and then there's the Asian
Mm-hmm.
influence and all the rest of it. It's like there is no race. We're all kind of all over the place. So for us,
Yeah.
we talk a lot about human being first, and it's like we're in
Mm-hmm.
the human race rather
Mm-hmm.
than differentiate. You're different to me because you've got that color skin. You're different to me because you've got different
Mm-mm.
eyes. You're different because you've got a big nose. Whatever it is, if you kind of realize that actually we're all human beings, so let's celebrate that and celebrate the differences because we've got amazing opportunities to see the world from different perspectives and go, actually, I like what you're doing over there. That's really interesting. Can we? That would be really good. Rather than, oh, you're different. I'm not interested. I don't want to know because
Right.
you're not the same as me. It just seems so limiting for
Mm-hmm.
where my head comes from. I likened actually, I was talking to someone this morning. I liken Collaboration Global to a country, an online
Mm.
country. Wouldn't that be lovely? I mean, we have got members from all over the
Oh,
world,
yes.
but wouldn't it be lovely if we were like, it's big enough, like maybe 10 million? That would be a nice sized country, wouldn't
That
it?
would be nice.
And
Yeah, no,
then
that's perfect.
have that conglomeration of experience and love bringing us
Mm-hmm.
together. We would be invincible. Oh my goodness, we could
Mm-hmm.
do anything we chose in
Right.
positively.
It's so
Not
true. And celebrate our differences, as you said, and also highlight our similarities, like highlight what we have in common. So if I can celebrate my differences from someone else's, that's like, wow, they're cool and unique in this way.
yeah,
But it's not just the differences because we have such an emphasis on differences right now, as there should be, because there's been so much harm done for thousands of years. We're trying to
yes,
overcome a
we're
deeply
undoing the
embedded
damage. Yeah,
social problems, right? But as we come out, I like to think, optimist forever, come out the other side, we also want to really focus on what our similarities are so that because in celebrating, in focusing on the differences, I wouldn't say celebrating, in focusing on the differences so entirely, I feel like the world has become actually more boxed up and more separate because, oh, he's this or she's that or they're that, or like, okay, well, I don't know how to be around that person. Well, what about we just be human to human? I mean, I like you, I'm sure. I've traveled all over the world. I've met so many people in so many cultures. Some of
mm,
the happiest people I've ever met and people I bonded to were people who we almost had no language in common.
yeah,
And they might have been very rich or very poor. And still, you can bond with people because just from the heart, a smile, a drink, a meal, whatever that is, you know, enemies on two sides of a war, if they just ran into each other at a bus stop and didn't focus on the differences or didn't know, They're talking about the weather. They're talking about the, it's just being human, right?
Yeah.
So when you have that opportunity, I think that's what's really going to help us recover as a global society is focusing also on our similarities. And when there are differences, embrace them and be excited about them.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfectly said. Well said. Yeah. Round of applause for that lady. It is so true. There is hope in the world when there are people around that have that kind of view. And what I don't like is the labeling of people to differentiate and separate. That it's very easy for us as two white women to make these comments, to be fair, because
Mhm.
until you've lived in another person's shoes, you have no idea
Mhm.
what it's like to be discriminated against or be belittled or walked over or all different
Yeah,
things that could happen. But at the same time, we can still have compassion and empathy for whoever is in the world. I have empathy for people that are very, very rich. When I'm
hmm,
talking the billionaires, everyone goes, "Oh,
sure.
why them?" I mean, I would not want to have that much
No.
money in the
Mm-mm.
responsibility that goes with it, and the fear of people, all the sort of kidnaps and all those kind of things
Mm-mm.
that, your life is not your own anymore. Same as
Mm-mm.
aristocracy. Oh, it's all right for them. They've got a lovely palace to
Mm-hmm.
live in. I don't really think I would want like that sort of life. No.
Golden cage, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
No, it's so true though, because yeah, as we look at, even the really, really wealthy, and some of those people do incredible good in the world, so not to shortchange that at all.
No, no.
But just imagine, especially if you're a young superstar, right? Like imagine, especially you don't have that much, you're in your 20s or 30s and you have an enormous amount of money. Life can be extraordinarily disappointing. And we don't think about that. We're like, why? Because once you've tried everything and gone everywhere and owned everything
Mm-hmm.
and visited every place and stayed in every place and eaten everything, and what is left?
Next, yeah.
Because you're like, what if they say, oh, I'm 35 and like there's literally, I've had so much money, I've done, tried, been, like now what? Now I have to look at myself in the mirror and like, who are you? And what do we do now? Because just entertaining ourselves to death isn't, it's boring. And that's why I
Yeah,
think we see
yeah,
so many tragic things like suicides among stars,
yeah.
and even the wealthy from depression and all the side effects of depression and disillusionment. So finding our core values and finding our purpose for living, I find, is for sure what pulls us forward, what pulls us up, what pulls us out, what pulls us forward is saying I am valuable as an individual human being of whatever race, color, creed, religion, however much money I have a contribution. Maybe I don't think I have value, but if I really put my mind to it, I see that there's something I can contribute and someone else, other people can have a better life because of me. How am I going to do that? How am I going to get off the couch and make a difference?
Hmm. And I think more and more people are coming to that now. And that as I say, it gives me hope for the future. So, having spoken about purpose, what would you say your purpose is at this time of your life? And I believe they change. I mean, different times of your life, you end up with a different purpose. But what is your one at the moment, Anne?
Um, so my purpose is really my personal purpose is creating new global conversations to find our commonalities. Honestly, that is it. And to find out how we can help support and empower each other to grow, to be self sustaining in whatever economic, social, and emotional environment you are.
Mm,
Um, a bigger, stronger planet at the grassroots level. New conversations about spirituality, which is a show that I'm wrapping up right now. It's just called I'm Spiritual, but
love it.
how can you have global conversations about spirituality without someone trying to prove someone else wrong?
Yes.
What if you could just embrace again those differences? What if you could learn from someone how to improve and grow your own personal experience in your life instead of constantly having to win to quote unquote be right, which none of us are perfectly right?
Mm,
So can we have those new kinds of conversations that are bigger, which seems impossible sometimes, than religion and politics? We can have those conversations that are more fundamental to who we are as human beings and help each other make the world a better place in a practical way.
Yeah, this thing about right and wrong really, in again collaboration global world, it's all about, we say there is no right or wrong. Imagine the world with no right or wrong, so you cannot be polarized. It's like, oh, am I right, am I wrong? Because even if you say it's 2 o'clock today, well, somebody, a man, has worked out how to chop up our space into segments. So somebody's decided that that's not a natural. And you could say this leaf is green, but who says that leaf is green? It's
Right.
there is no right or wrong in anything. That morally, yes, there are things that you can have those discussions about, evil and good and those kind of things. But when most of our world, especially governments, is like, I'm on this side, you're on that side, you've got to agree with me. Do I though, really? And it's just, there has to be a new way that we can evolve to learn how to live more harmoniously with our fellow man, woman, anybody.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And I think in a strange way, we always say think bigger. I think smaller. Because
Mm,
if you have exponential small changes and effects and efforts
yeah,
and efforts to create better environmental situation, better social change, if you have more smaller conversations on a global level, that changes the thermostat of the planet more than one individual country or one individual religion. Over
yeah,
time, that's what revolutionizes it at a grassroots level where individual humans are working together to create positive change that's not necessarily funded by governments and massive corporations. And what about, not that that's not good, but what about lasting change that also teaches everyone from the people in across my street to the people across the street in any developing nation how to get on their own 2 feet, how to make an income, how to take care of their family, and create social or environmental change while they're doing it. It is possible. We just have to restructure our thinking. And I think as a Western society, obviously, especially speaking as American, there's this drive to perform and to make, as many dollars as possible and basically leave the government and nonprofits to sort out the rest of the world's issues. And I'm like, that is a really lazy and selfish way of looking at it. And if you donate some money, thank you. There's great causes that can benefit from that. But it's different from changing who you are, who finding deep in your soul intrinsically how you are part of a bigger global family as opposed to just which club you're in and whose car is nicer. And it's so very shallow and unsustainable and not really healthy because as you know, in this country, I think at least a third, I don't know, maybe it's even higher than that, might even be 60%. I'd have to go check
yeah.
now, of this country is on anti-anxiety and antidepressants. So
Wow.
something in capitalistic culture isn't working. Parts of it have done a lot of good in the world, but parts of it have created a very egocentric opinion of what life is about.
Yeah, it's just unbalanced, isn't it? And that balance is way out of kilter, so it's not sustainable. And we have
Right.
to
No, for sure.
we have to bring
Sorry,
it.
I'm picking up I brought my dog to my office and
That's
this is
okay.
my bottle of evil here. Just water. She hates it. So
You're going to
I'm
have
like,
all the pet lovers ringing us up now saying, what are you doing to that poor dog?
don't worry, it's just water. All I have to do is shake it. Yeah,
Oh,
that's what
that's
I
enough.
thought. Well, it's hard when you're on Zoom all day and you're like, okay, I have 3 rescues.
Yeah.
So yeah, challenges.
Oh, you're walking the talk. I love it. I absolutely love it. No, I love what you say. We've got to restructure our thinking. Is that part of what you do around your work? So you help people see the potential of what they could gain.
Yeah, I think, my focus, I created a group called the Global Impact League, and the primary focus of that right now is social entrepreneurship. I'm a social entrepreneur, and for those of you, most of you probably know, I always think of Europeans as more enlightened than Americans, but anyway, social entrepreneurship means it's like a nonprofit, except it's for profit. So you create a business or a movement, you create a business in particular with the intent of not what's your bottom line just for you, but supporting a cause or being a cause. And then you can make your own income off of that just so you know, all the nonprofits make income. They have volunteers, but all the leadership make income too. So this is just but instead of being dependent on government dollars, on competing for those huge government grants, for those huge corporate grants, you can do this on your own at the ground level, and anyone can do it. You could start with a clothes washing business where you're washing clothes in the river. I won't have any environmental conversation about that too much. Simply washing clothes in the river for a purpose, which is either you give a portion of that money to a particular movement that you're trying to build, or you're literally washing clothes for elderly people who can't, and you also take in other people's washing to pay for that and then to have some income. So it can be so simple. And in the West, there's a huge, you're just being naughty. Yeah, I love you though. She's not has all my attention right now, so she's like, this is not right.
Maybe
what
she
is
wants
happening?
to sit on your lap and join in. Maybe that's
probably does. But in the West, over the last, especially the last 50 years, entrepreneurship has been such a movement. And but I think that the change on the horizon for a lot of globally minded people, and especially the youngest generations, the Gen Zs, is how social entrepreneurship, or you can also call that, environmental entrepreneurship, is really a movement that can create change long term. Just imagine if everyone's business had a specific social or environmental intent, where either 20% of their net income goes to a cause that they are very personally passionate about, or they're actually creating something in the business to make a difference. I'll give you an example of one of my friends in West Virginia. So she is a social entrepreneur. She's a baker. She makes the most amazing baked goods. Absolutely wonderful bakery. And a few years back, her own story, but she got involved with a program for ex-con women. So women released from prison from hard time. And they don't have any employment anymore. Some of them have families and children they've left behind. And she decided to create a social entrepreneurship, an entire business plan that has ex-con women come in and learn business skills at the bakery, learn a practical skill, learn baking, learn all the different elements of that business, and get paid so they can get back on their feet again, so they can set a good example for their children, so they can demonstrate the importance and satisfaction of work. Wow. So she now has 3 bakeries in her region, all of which are run this way. It's 100% for-profit business. Gosh. But the purpose of the business is creating employment and rehab training for ex-con women. And the woman who started it, she makes a very decent income. And she's loves what she's one of the busiest people I've ever met. She loves it. She makes enough to take care of her life. She's not trying to make, $10 million for herself this year. That's not the objective. But that's an example of sort of, small town Western social entrepreneurship at its best, where it's a growing, increasing business and is literally influencing a whole region. And she has, prisons calling her and asking her, because there's so much more that can be done. So how amazing is that to create that kind of change?
Yeah, that is beautiful. I mean, that reminds me of a friend of mine, similar circumstance. He, but in a slightly different scale. He creates beautiful designer sunglasses. A bit different to a bakery, but a fabulous sunglasses, and he just sells them online.
I like sunglasses.
He hasn't got a shop, but the purpose of the business is to create new businesses in Africa. So there is a place in Africa where he goes, where they get the covers are made specifically, the stuff that makes the glasses is made, so that all of these people are earning an income because they are creating these wonderful things that get shipped back to the UK. And
amazing.
He was one of the, so recently our Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, invited 100 business owners in sort of the SME bracket, small medium enterprise bracket, into 10 Downing Street to go what are we going to do? Just to kind of gauge their reaction of like, what, because ultimately we have to remember that small businesses are the backbone of every society. That's how they started. That's how we grew. That's how the corporations came out of it. And we've still got those today. And SMEs employ more people than any other business. So we have this huge power, exactly what you're talking about. If every business in the UK or in the States or Western world decided to have a business for good, we would make global impact, huge impact. And this is what, John Pritchard, I'll give him a shout out, what he's doing. And he's found it difficult to get it off the ground. So the whole idea was there first and the products came afterwards. But it's now working, and it's working really well. For him to be able to go to the Prime Minister and explain how he's operating, he's a perfect example of what everybody else could do as well. So let's hope he was heard.
Because that's incredible.
He did a fabulous Usain Bolt pose outside number 10 for his social media.
Nice. Oh, amazing. No, that's amazing. Yeah, because, and even existing businesses can restructure, they can pivot. You can create a new business plan. You might need some strategic support around that. But part of what I'm trying to accomplish with the Global Impact League is helping people like your friend who went to number 10. If we have large group of these kind of people, if I'm working with these individuals, we're solving a lot of the same problems together. We're sharing resources, information, experience, contacts, sources of funding. We're sharing all of these things in an environment that can help us. It's kind of like a social entrepreneur incubator, if you will. Now, right now, I'm not necessarily working with brand new people who just want to start, although eventually I will be. And if you're still interested, let me know, because even if you're just starting, I'd love to talk to you. There's always a place. But bringing together people who have that kind of experience and want to share and build. How did you work this out with the UK government? Okay, well, now maybe this person can apply it to their own local government or region. Like, how do they get support? And there's a lot of unknowns among what that will look like over time. One of the challenges is if you're a nonprofit, everything's tax deductible. If you're for profit, it isn't. But I also think there may even be possibilities for, over time, once this becomes a more global movement, for change around that, either whether it's tax breaks or something, to encourage social change. Why would you want to leave it just to the big giants, the giant, NGOs, which are great and doing incredible work that needs to be done? But why would you just leave it to that? It's very top heavy financial structure. A lot of the funds never get where they're going. If you're dealing with people on the ground who live in the communities they serve, you get a lot more possibility of, one, understanding the intrinsic issues you're dealing with, and two, making sure that change goes to where it was meant to go. I think one of the biggest challenges I've seen, for, nonprofits or starting up nonprofits, is that well-meaning people say, I have an idea, I want to create this, I'm going to help everyone in the world that has diabetes, and, there's this top-down design, and they get funding, but they haven't done often enough on-the-ground research. They haven't talked to a rural Argentinian woman with diabetes. They're not really creating a business plan based on specific need. They come in with generally good intentions, but it's not a great use of funds. And a lot of times the programs aren't what people really want or want to come to. So how do we change this? And that's a little more grassroots. If you want to start something in another country, let's immediately connect with those people on the ground. Let's create a unified effort. Again, just as I said at the very beginning, finding our commonalities and working together, even if there are differences, that's going to be the most, successful way for social change. And the more we can make this part of our everyday business model, the quicker it's going to happen.
That's called collaboration in action, isn't it? It's the whole, bringing people together, helping each other out, sharing what sharing what you've discovered, and supporting each other to grow. But it's not just, here, I can help you make some money. it's the bigger picture as well. It goes back to what Gina Gardner was saying, the lady that introduced you to Collaboration Global. She has this great phrase, radical responsibility. And this is something that when you're talking about restructuring our thinking, is if we all accepted that we have a radical responsibility, because together, connected, we can make a huge impact. But if you sit there going, oh, what can I do? Oh, yeah, nothing. I'm useless. I'm on my own. I can't do anything. So you do nothing. But actually, if all of us do a little something, it builds. There's that old story, I don't know if you've heard it, about the guy walking on the beach, and there were like hundreds of starfish on the beach, and he starts throwing them back into the sea, and this other chap comes along and says, why are you doing that? You can't help all of them. And he picks one up and he throws it in, and he said, well, I help that one. And it's that mentality we can all, I mean, going back to village life, once a month we have a litter pick, and we all get out there with our black sacks and our high-vis jackets on, make
Amazing.
it clean, you know. But it needs somebody to organize it and somebody to go, yes, I'll do it. And it's like the person with the crazy idea, whatever that crazy idea is, and then you have your first follower. And that's exactly how Collaboration Global started. My first business partner had the crazy idea, and he was a little bit crazy, and I was the first follower, and then it's kind of blossomed from there. So how did you get, let's backtrack a little bit, where did the seed of an idea come for the Global Impact League? When was the birth of it?
Yeah, wow. um, in a very, very short version of my story, um, I grew up in a very right-wing religious, like Protestant cult-like environment
Right.
in the Western United States, where I was homeschooled till I was 16. And by that, I mean like in the middle of nowhere with two brothers, not like we have a really cool homeschool where we all see other kids during the week. So it was very much for religious reasons. It was extremely isolated. And there was a lot of good that came out of it, and also a lot of challenge transitioning into mainstream life, as you might imagine. But I think the earliest elements of giving back did come from a religious perspective that it's kind of your born duty to
Mm-hmm.
create positive change. Now, I may not consider the positive change they were encouraging the kind that I want to make anymore, obviously, but it was kind of hardwired that part of your purpose was to serve and to create change and to help others.
Mm-hmm.
Just the definitions of that might have been sometimes questionable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, going through life, I found different ways of doing that. And after a bad divorce and a lot of soul searching and trying to figure out who in the world I was and what my purpose was, went to Hollywood to become an actress for 10 years,
Like you
which
did.
was fun, but also
Wow.
insane and before Me Too, so a mess. And I thought, well, this is my world stage. This is how I'm going to create an impact, tell a story, make a difference. I really sought out humanitarian movies, docudramas, documentaries, things that I felt like I could portray a character that would encourage change towards the positive. I had worked with a variety of nonprofits at that point, from ADRA, Development and Relief Agency, to Amnesty International, to even the American Cancer Society, and others. So I was like, but this is where I can create the stage so you can be heard. And over time, I realized that even though there was sort of like the crazy thrill of that ride, it wasn't really something that fed my soul forever. Or being a creative, I will always be a creative. But I realized that my deepest natural gifts were teaching, coaching, mentoring, if you will, even emotionally healing. Being a nurturer and a teacher is what I was born to be, and I've known that since I was very young.
Mm.
So why would I not employ what I was the best at instead of competing to be that one in a million who makes it in Hollywood?
Mm.
Um, why not do good right now without having to depend on 1,000 other people and how that's all going to work out in the end? And so even while I was still doing the acting, I got my coaching certification. I started teaching. I started getting involved with nonprofits and other organizations again. And through COVID, I was doing more and more around emotional wellness on a global level, just because that was such a critical piece. But ultimately, what called me in the end was really that giving it back and doing it in a global way. You can start in your backyard, but you can also, the one of those unfortunate, COVID was unfortunate, but one of those side effects for good
Yeah.
was this digital communication age that we're in that we weren't fully utilizing before.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
like you said at the beginning, we can easily have a global conversation now.
Mm.
I think there's more cell phones in the world than there are people now. I'm not sure. It's very close.
Oh.
So, people have access to information, to digital communication. So
Mm.
there's really no excuse why we can't start really creating change now and doing it as a global effort. And also, in my conviction, I want to be involved in that more grassroots way. Um, working with the social entrepreneurs I work with now, bringing in new ones, encouraging, training, creating a community for that to happen. And then ultimately down the road, I really look forward to developing international programs where I can take this into colleges, universities, or even into the uneducated areas where you can teach people simple skills, a simple paradigm of how this can work and connect them to a global community who wants them to succeed. So that's kind of how my bizarre journey of giving back and helping others is what gives me the greatest joy and gives me the greatest meaning. So that's kind of where it brought me to where I am today.
I love it. I love it. When you find that your mojo, that sort of magic of like propels you forward, it's like that last piece of the jigsaw goes clunk, and you're like, yeah, yeah, this is me. This is who I
Yeah.
am. It's a really
Mm-hmm.
good feeling. And then I don't know about you, but even on your worst days when your laptop's not working properly and somebody's gone wrong or the dogs are mucking about or whatever, and you're like, right, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to go. I'm just going to give it all away and not do it. And you sit there for about 30 seconds and go, but I'd miss it. I couldn't not do it. It's like it's part of who you are now,
I
Well, for me
know.
anyway, this is how I feel. It's like,
Yes. No, I so agree. And there's nothing I hate more than being bored.
oh yeah.
I am never, ever, ever bored. Well, let's see. When I'm forced to sit at extended relatives' house on holidays and I can't play on my phone without being rude,
Oh
I am
no, no,
bored
you can't do
beyond.
that.
I am
Yeah.
bored beyond. I'm
What you
like, if
should
someone doesn't
do,
start talking about religion and politics right now, I'm going to literally go crazy.
like you
That
play a
to
game in
me
your
is
head.
boredom.
You have to play a game in your head and look
Okay,
around at
tic tac toe.
everybody and
Yeah,
wonder what their limiting beliefs are and wonder what's going on
there
inside.
you go. Exactly.
If
There
I
you
was
go.
going
Well,
to help them,
actually,
how would I help them? It's
yes. No,
interesting.
those
Yeah.
are the best challenges ever. I always say the people that are often closest to you are the ones you can learn the most from.
Oh
Because
my
if you
goodness.
can learn to relate and communicate
Yeah.
with those toughies that might be in your life,
Yeah.
then you're already off on a good start to be reaching other people. But yes, yes, doing what you love makes such a big difference.
I always
And I
think,
mean, I know this is what I was meant to do.
yeah.
And, I see this as, I mean, my goal is to help either start or grow 10,000 impact programs over the next 10 years. And I believe that can be done exponentially and globally by creating the system of support. So, whether someone who can come into this community, they could be a nonprofit person, they can be human resources, they can be a charity, or they can be a social entrepreneur. It's geared towards social entrepreneurship, but there are so many pieces of crossover that if someone really wants to come and just be supported by that energy and that activity, because it's very much strategic, we're not just sitting around talking. It's
Mm.
very much on the ground, next steps. I mean, I've been a business coach forever. I've been an entrepreneur since I was like, I don't know, 14.
11.
Yeah, pretty much. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, I've worked for myself. I mean, even as an actress, people would say, "Oh, but now you have." I'm like, "No, I'm still self-employed." My goodness, ask SAG. I am
Yeah.
self-employed. I have to run my own business, promote myself. Yeah, you have agents and managers, but it all comes down in the end to your own marketing, presentation, skill, all of
Yeah.
it. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was the toughest one. So this is what I say. If I could survive in that industry, which is
Yes.
probably the most cutthroat industry on the planet,
I can't imagine.
and is the most overstocked industry on the planet, where like the number of the commodity, the actors, is so outweighs the roles. It's just
Mm.
mind blowing. Like if I
Yeah.
could survive that and still be kicking, I could take on anything. Bring it on.
Yeah, you haven't had a breakdown or anything, so
Oh yeah, no, I've had so many. I'm over
okay.
it. I'm like, okay, been there, done that. Flip
Move
the
on.
switch. Okay, up we go again. Resiliency 101. That's all right here.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? What doesn't hurt you or what doesn't break you makes you stronger, as they
So
say.
true. And nothing is ever wasted. I mean,
No.
an unusual childhood with no TV, no radio, no fiction, no movies, no dancing, no,
Wow.
it was literally, it was like more conservative than Little House on the Prairie. This is
Oh,
such a myopic way of living for an artistic, creative, social person, which I am. And then, marrying into that religion, very, very young, getting divorced young, and then suddenly you're contaminated goods because you're divorced,
yeah.
and that environment is like you're no longer okay. Like, but I'm taking care of myself. There's so many disconnects, and you start struggling, and like, how do you reinvent and recreate? But there's something about and anyone who's listening, I'm not slamming homeschool here because a lot of things that can be done.
Yeah.
Homeschooled kids are incredibly resourceful
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah.
because they had to be. You learn to think outside the box, you learn to strategize, to initiate. Like, you're a self-starter. That's the kind of person many homeschool kids are. Either that or they're, often become geniuses in science or something. Not me,
Yeah.
not the genius in science, social maybe, but but so everything that happens, even the bad things, everything I learned, any experience is only wasted if you let it be wasted. If you add it to this entity of experience, of
Mm,
wisdom, of reasoning that you have built over the course of your life, and your focus, your GPS is set towards something positive, which is making a difference, which makes you happy. When you
mm,
have that course set, nothing is wasted because I can relate to my clients, my coaching clients, my groups. I can identify with people. I'm partly from natural gifts and partly from learning. I'm an incredibly empathic person. That really serves you when you're growing a business, when you're working with people, when you're helping support them through struggles. If I could have just become so self-focused
mm.
that and self-serving, and is not necessarily wrong. We all have damage, right?
Yeah.
But you can take all that bad stuff and literally create rocket fuel to take you
Yeah.
where you're going. You just have to be willing to look at it that way and say, I'm not wasting any of that. That stuff happened. I did not want it. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I'm not wasting one iota of that energy. That's going here to where I'm going.
Yeah, I love that. That is so true. And one of the things we say at Collaboration Global is about the three pillars. We have a personal development, business development, and collaboration, learning how to collaborate effectively. And the personal development, I think any person that kind of goes, yep, I'm done. I did a course back in 1972. It's never done, is it? And if we don't understand, if we put our hurt and our pain and our experience that we didn't engage with in a little box, and we've put the lid on and we've tied a ribbon up and we've just left it there, still festering away,
It's a
waiting to kind of,
shrine if you do that.
it's coming back to bite you, basically, isn't it? At some
Yeah.
point it will come back to
And it's
bite you.
a shrine for the self-pity shrine.
Yeah. I don't get you've got any self-pity in you whatsoever.
Oh, just a little bit. I'm sure my husband came up with something
Okay.
else.
Yeah, we won't ask him. It's fine. We won't ask him.
No.
One of the things I ask all my guests on here is, can you remember when you were, say, 7 or 8, what was one of your happiest memories as a child?
Wow.
Bearing in mind what you just told us, it might be hard.
I was going to say, I mean, obviously I did have some enjoyable moments
Yeah.
as a child, but I'll tell you what came to my mind first. So I don't know if this is the happiest. Wasn't bad, but it's a little sad.
Oh, go on.
Which was playing in my backyard at, yeah, say 7. We hadn't moved way into the middle of nowhere yet. We were still kind of in a semi-rural, woodsy area. So you could kind of see like one house, but playing in my backyard in Seattle, Washington, which is a very damp, green place. And that part of the world used to be home to some of the biggest trees around. And the lumber industry made short use of that earlier in the
Oh.
20th century, which is tragic. But there were stumps in my backyard that were literally like 8 feet across.
Wow.
And You could climb on them, you could play, you could cross some of these old fallen trees. And so I had fun out there with my brothers were like 2 and 3, so they're not playing with me.
Mm.
Um, I had an invisible friend named Patty.
Oh, God bless Patty.
And we would talk and talk and talk and play and scheme and but here's how imagination is born. You know,
Hmm.
if I had just been fed, and this is where I take the wins, a digital diet from birth, I wouldn't have had to do that. So
Yeah.
I was learning to entertain myself, create, think outside the box, build things, be innovative from a very, very young age. And while I would not wish that childhood on anyone else, I also say there is a balance that can be found because you really do get that. You can bring, I think, the best of both of those
Mm.
worlds together.
Mm.
And, but yeah, that was fun. And then another memory was a much younger, which was just my dad had built one of those, a wooden swing, like the old fashioned swing on ropes, right? A
Yeah.
wooden board with 2 ropes
Yeah, I love it.
and hung it in a big tree. And I was super daddy's girl, absolutely adored and worshiped him. And he would come home from work or on the weekends sometimes, and we'd go out and he would just push me on that swing. And I love the sense of flying and like not
Mm.
jumping, not falling off, just
No, no.
flying. And, you know, just kind of feeling like a bird. So those are some of the good memories.
And what I love is when you look at those memories, whether you've joined the dots before or not, I love being able to look back to where you are now and join the dots to where you sort of started from. And your joy that you had then is what you're bringing into your life today, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, that
Yes.
ability to kind of fly with your tribe,
Mm-hmm.
the people that you're helping and
Mm-hmm.
supporting, you're helping them to fly.
Mm-hmm.
As well as this imagination for what's possible, everything's possible. What
Yes.
can we do? So,
Yes. The eternal optimist. Yeah, no, it's so true. And a very deep connection to nature. So for me, having gone through a lot of religious chaos in my life, you know, I always say nature is my cathedral. Because that's kind of where I grew up. I spent in hundreds and thousands of hours of alone time in nature growing up.
mm.
And so while it's for some reason, some people that maybe would create a really empty, lonely space, for me, it actually is my go home place. It's my go. It doesn't matter where I am in the world. As long as I can access nature and dogs, I'm great.
Oh, that's lovely. I had the opposite experience to you. I was brought up in the East End of London, so
Oh, wow.
cities and my kind of I love the buzz and a friend of mine we went out in London. I say a friend of mine, she's about 20 years older than me, but we used to hang out together. And took her to a show in London, but it was in a upstairs in a pub. It was one of those kind of in Islington, so it was a little
Fun.
bit. And she was petrified. She was like, "Oh my God, somebody's going to mug me. Let me stand on the inside of the road. Let me do. Calm down. What's wrong?" And I'm walking along as normal. She's like, "Aren't you worried you're going to be mugged?" I said, "Not everybody gets mugged in London. You know." She was a country girl. And a few weeks later, we were out and it got dark and we were in a forest. I'm like, "Oh my God, we're going to get lost." And she's like, "What's wrong with you?"
No, it's so true. No, I used to be when I was young. I was very nervous of the city. I was able to break out of that by got fortunate enough to well, made my own way to find ways to travel and go to Europe as young as like 16, 17 is literally what kept me going through a very strange time because I wasn't really integrated until my mid 20s.
Gosh.
So, not really, partially maybe during college, but not even starting until college. But getting out and traveling all over Europe, I created, I was religious, right? So I created history tours for religious history. So the first one, I was a senior in my really tiny high school of 60 students. And I said, I ought to go back to Europe because I'd gone once. And I said, I got to go back and I want to do a British Isles tour. I told you. And I said, okay, so how can I do this in a religious way? I was like, okay, well, we'll study I was very fascinated with history. Now I have 2 degrees and a graduate degree in history. But I was like, well, we'll study like the religious leaders and reformers in the UK, starting with like St. Patrick in Ireland, and then you know, Clonmacnoise, all these places. All throughout the Bede, I guess Bede. I grew up saying Beta, and then I was like, no, that's not right. So many people. So I found a girlfriend who was also just wanted to go to Europe, and she was able to get someone to give her some money, because I didn't have any money. I didn't grow up with extra cash at all. People are like, "Oh, you were the cheerleader." I'm like, "No, you have no idea."
Oh.
No, I didn't even put a stick of makeup on until I was like 17. That was like lip gloss. And so, but I said, and then I said, "Okay, oh, but we can't rent a car in Europe because we're too young." So then she knew someone who was like a postdoctoral student, and she knew a friend. So ended up like four women. Two of
Wow.
us were younger. We rented a car. I had the itinerary. I booked everything, the youth hostels, the hotels, and we just did it. And I was like, ever from then on, even started like my junior year in high school, I would find ways to get my way paid to travel because for me that was the only window on my world.
Yeah.
And even though I was still culturally exactly the way I'd been raised, I just was like, wow. And I think that like letting the cat out of the box
Yeah.
thing is
Yeah.
why I've always been so fascinated with travel and connected with such amazing human beings and really became a kind of obsessed with a global family, a global experience, a global mindset, right? Because I tell you, there's a lot of people in every country of the world that I will still relate to more than my parents, who will never watch this, so that's okay.
I was going to email them a copy. No, no, I won't do
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Because they're
It's
still
true.
not the same,
Well,
which is shocking.
my parents never went abroad, and I didn't actually go abroad till I was on my honeymoon at the age of 21. And I had exactly the same experience. It was our neighbours who were Portuguese let us use their home in Portugal to stay for our honeymoon.
Wow.
So to get off of the plane and meet these people, and there was no word of English spoken,
Nope.
no English menus. It was like we were the white people in the village, where it was this little
Yep.
beach harbour, which was beautiful. I now find out it's the world centre for surfing. It's where all the
What?
championships are held. So I'm never going to go back to that cute little harbour because it doesn't exist anymore. It's now going to be
Wow, it's a big
commercialised.
commercial thing. Yeah.
But it was like to be there and to talk to them and for them to come and be friendly and oh, you're Nella's friends. That was the most English that we got out of any of them. You're Nella's friends, shake hands, hug. These big burly fishermen would come over and say hello because we were sat on the beach and we were the
That's
white ones.
amazing.
You could see them. Within 2 days, my husband had a tan, so everyone thought he was Portuguese and I was the odd one out. But
Yeah, that doesn't
that
work
that
here.
lit the touch paper. Yeah, that lit the touch paper so that I was like, oh, there's this whole other world out there. I need to get going. And
Yeah.
luckily in
No.
Europe, we can go for a weekend and go and travel
Oh,
and experience
yes. No, you
different
have
life.
no idea how jealous I am because, for me, the short, I'm on the West Coast, so the shortest trip on a plane is like to Vegas, and I'm like, been there, done
Yeah.
that so many times. I'm like,
Uh,
yeah, but I'm very fortunate because I've lived abroad for brief amounts of time. I've studied abroad for brief amounts of time.
yeah.
My husband, for the last 8 or 9 years, has always worked for European companies, for French companies. He's in tech now for a German company based in Berlin. So
Nice.
I do get to travel quite a bit, not just for holiday, but also just because of his business. And I
Yeah.
get to be like, I'm coming along, just so you know. So that gives us a way to kind of launch ourselves. In
That's
fact,
lovely.
in a few weeks, I'm going to, let's see, let me get this right now, Corsica, which I've never
Oh,
been, of course, never been to
lovely.
there, and Sardinia.
Oh,
His, it's like here, everyone's like, okay, we're gonna have a business convention for our company. We'll go to Vegas. He's like, oh no, they go. Last time they went to Croatia,
oh, that's
Berlin-based company, and
lovely.
this time they're going to Sardinia. And I was
Yeah,
like, these are great, kind of the little peripheral places that you get, that I've been all
beautiful.
over, but not to those islands. So I'm like, ooh, yeah.
You definitely need to talk to Alessandro because that's where he's from.
Oh,
So he'll tell you the best
yes.
places
No,
to
he
go.
did. He did. We've had a couple great chats and he's talked a lot about it. He's like, oh, this is where you need to
Yeah.
go and this is where you need to
I haven't
be. And
been there yet, so it's on my list. I have to get, yeah.
okay, cool. Well, we'll have to like get Alessandro and do a group trip. That'd be a great
Yeah,
place for a retreat, Jill.
I think so.
Just
I
saying.
think so. Yeah,
Just
I will not
saying.
disagree with that.
Collaboration global. Yeah, that's what I'm
Well, when are
saying.
you coming to London? This is the thing.
It's happening. My goal is I have so many things going on this year. If not the end of this year, then I would say hopefully next spring. So
Awesome.
at the latest next spring. And I
Right.
do want to come and do. I really want to join with some of you other amazing people from Collaboration Global
Yeah.
and do some training and retreats for people where we can really combine this passion for the world with the skill sets we have to really create an impact, make a difference, and have so much fun doing it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's a perfect place to end it, I think. If people wanted to get hold of you, Anne, in the nicest possible way, um, what's the easiest way to connect up with you?
Sure. So LinkedIn is great. My website is just my name. And if you're listening, it's spelled Anne with an E. So it's ANNE, Scottlin, not the country, Anne Scottlin. At annescottlin.com. And I'm on all the social platforms. Twitter is my strongest platform, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, I'm there. So pop over, drop me a line. My email address is right on my website. I will respond to you personally, shout out anything that I can be assistance, or if you know anyone who wants to start creating an impact in their local, regional, global area, let me know.
Yeah.
I'd love to work with you. I have a new cohort group, a new mastermind starting at the end of this month. Or anyway, in the May-June time frame. So anyone who wants to reach out over that time, let me know, and we'll get you in or have you swing by.
That sounds fabulous. And I wish you every success with all the things you are doing. You are a true global citizen, irrelevant or irrespective of where you started or where you are currently. I think it's that mindset, as you say, of everyone is a human being and our differences can be celebrated and we can stay connected. And I think once you're connected and your hearts connect as well as your minds, then you can make anything happen. So thank you so much for being on the show,
Thank
Anne.
you.
And of
Such
course,
a
if
pleasure.
anybody wants to meet Anne in the meantime, we have our regular guest meetings at Collaboration Global. You'll find the link underneath the podcast. And you can come along to those. They're always the last Tuesday of the month, or find us on Eventbrite or collaborationglobal.org, our website, and you can meet her in person online, if that's not quite the same as in person for a hug, but next best thing.
Close enough, right?
Exactly. Thank you so much, Anne. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jill.
Bye.